How wealthy is the U.S.? USA is very blessed, so circumstances and geography are just as important as any other factor in American success. I will give you a brief view of a lecture I gave to my freshmen in America history. America is a country of failures and second chances. People who failed in Europe came to American. People in India, because of their birth could not succeed, came to America. Catholics who were discriminated by Protestants immigrated, and Protestants who were discriminated by Catholics immigrated as well. The lower middle class of 100 nations sold everything to escape oppression and poverty to come to America. In America, people regularly fail. They fail in NYC, can move to Chicago, then LA, then Atlanta, each time trying again like their ancestors did when they first immigrated. Eventually they find success and find the drive necessary to become successful, and relative to their ancestors in the old country they become wealthy. American is also a country of mutts. A mutt is a dog that has multiple breeds in them. They are mixed so much you cannot always tell what their original breed is. To survive, a mutt has to be tough and independent. They are the best and worst kind of dog at the same time. That can be said of the USA as well. At its best it can be wealthy to the point it can be generous in a way no other country cannot. At its worst it can without forethought squash the culture of other countries, for example the role of Hollywood to trivialize non-American cultures. How wealthy is America? The country is wealth enough to afford second chances to almost everyone. Yes, college is not free. However, a 50-year-old retiree can go back to school and retrain themselves into anything for their second or third career. The cost will be partially subsidized by the government, but will largely be based on the drive of the individual. As long as that drive exists, Americans will take chances and eventually succeed. 0 if you mean the United States Gov. 100% of money is extracted from the private sector or borrowed from the private sector. We spend at a higher rate than receipts of all kinds. Our Gov liabilities exceed all bank account deposits by the thousands. Our Gov is insolvent. The appropriate question is, how much money does our Gov not have to cover our liabilities? Probably $100 trillion. In the whole. If you mean American citizens, money, then 0 for currency plus real silver and gold. Silver and gold no longer back up our currency since 1971. Since 1971, our currency is just another fiat currency. This means it is just a piece of fancy paper that our Gov has declared as money for purposes of commerce. But when you create more currency, at a faster rate than the real growth in GDP, you get inflation, that is, higher prices. This is why everything costs so much more than 40+ years ago. A 1,913 United States dollars dollar is worth just 2 cents due to monetary mismanagement by the Fed and our politicians. Silver and gold are commodities. The 1792 Silver Coinage Act made silver our official currency. If you mean Gov Assets, then it is the sum total of the personal property and real property owned by our Gov that has a fair market value. Since the Gov doesn't do accounting like the private sector, it is whatever you think it is. The GAO audits constantly and reports its findings to Congress. But Congress does nothing to provide information back to us citizens. If you mean private sector wealth, then it is the collective sum total of personal property and real estate property, less all debts. I would not count paper currency, bank deposits, or stock certificates into my wealth equation. I would count private holdings of gold and silver as monetary assets. All fiat currencies fail eventually. The average life of a fiat currency is 50 years. We are approaching that end. This is why purchasing silver and gold with fiat currency is wise and prudent now. When our currency collapses, silver and gold values will skyrocket. Nobody will want our overprinted currency. Think Venezuela. The amount of real money that America has is in fact equal to the amount of silver and gold on hand in the final analysis. The United States is wealthy because it is in the unique position of being able to print money without much worry about inflation, and it is able to use debt to create wealth. What? You say, how is this possible? It is possible because of dollar recycling, sometimes known as petrodollar recycling or just plain petrodollars. Here is some history behind it and how it works. It is a bit complicated. Please bear with me. In the early 1970s, President Nixon, in possibly the most important decision of any 20th century president, abrogated the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was the so-called gold standard for international currencies. Now currencies would float against each other and the days of creating money out of nothing could begin. The petroleum exporting countries began to accumulate vast amounts of foreign currency numbering in value of trillions of dollars. Letting their own currencies float on international markets would naturally cause them to become ridiculously overvalued because of their trade surpluses to these countries, like Saudi Arabia pegged their currency's value to the dollar. In order to keep from being screwed over by currency fluctuations after a trade, the Saudis demanded that every country buy petroleum with US dollars, and this became the common practice among all OPEC countries. The dollar-oriented oil trades created the so-called dollar hegemony, also described as the dollar as the reserve currency. So dollars became the new gold for international trading. Suddenly, all countries who import oil, which is nearly all countries, need dollars to buy oil with, which forced them to export to the United States or obtain US dollars through international money exchanges, or for poor countries through the IMF. The US could increase financial liquidity of the entire world by simply printing dollars. This allows the United States to print more dollars than it normally would be able to without fear of inflation, because the international markets buffer those dollars and keep them from directly inflating the US economy. Which brings us to dollar recycling and debt as wealth. The countries accumulating lots of dollars, like Saudi Arabia, need a safe place to put them. The safest place is investing in US debt of all kinds, certain foreign equities including US companies, and US real estate. These dollars coming back to the US to buy debt keeps interest rates incredibly low. By creating derivatives, US institutions are actually able to sell US debt as if it has value. You will remember that there was a breakdown in this scheme at the end of 2007.